The girl in the bed was dying. Varys saw it the instant he stepped into the round, torchlit chamber high in the lonely tower the Dornish called the Spear of the Morning. The air itself felt brittle, thin, as if the great red waste beyond the windows had been drawn inside these stone walls, drying flesh and hope alike. Her skin, once the pale pink of a maiden just past girlhood, had gone translucent, every blue vein etched in merciless detail. Strands of black hair clung to her damp cheeks, though an unseen breeze kept worrying them, like dark petals torn from a flower and pasted upon her brow. The smell reminded him of the shadow markets of Myr at midsummer. Old blood, sour milk, and the iron tang of fear, too long suppressed. The wet nurse knelt at her side, weeping soundlessly as she coaxed a newborn's lips to her breast. The babe suckled weakly. It was, by the mother, it must be, only minutes old. A red slash marked its entrance into the world and still oozed upon the linen, but the child's lungs were strong. Its cries had guided Varys' party up spiral stair after spiral stair, across a courtyard strewn with the spent bodies of ravens and beneath banners bearing a fallen dragon. The dragon has 3 heads. The words flitted across his mind like a moth chasing fire, and he held them close against the jagged cold that lived inside him. 3 heads, aye. But for 2 days and a night he had ridden in delirious fear that the last head would die here, unnamed, unknown, lost in a tower raised by ancient Danes who once believed starstones could catch the song of the gods. Another birth cry split the chamber. The girl in the bed gasped, then seized Varys' wrist with a strength born not of flesh, but of terror. "Promise me." Her eyes, gray and luminous as rainwater, fixed upon him with such intensity that he forgot the weight of his silken robes, his 100 little secrets, his 1,000 disguises. They were eyes that belonged in the winter town of the far north, or upon snow-draped fields, where kings once knelt to wolves. Strange eyes for a dragon's bride. "Promise me he will live." He had prepared 70 core 3 lies on the long ride south, but all died unsaid. In their place rose a single, stark truth. "He will. Not in King's Landing," she rasped. "Robert will kill him. My brother is gone. My prince is dead. They will come, all of them. Hund, they will find a corpse." Varys finished gently, brushing sweat from her brow with the back of a powder-soft hand. "A stillborn babe, aye. We will lay him beside you. No one will doubt that Lyanna Stark died birthing a child who never drew breath." Lyanna. Even in the half-orchetting of the streets, that name rang like steel. Beyond the chamber, men groaned among rubble. Outside, 3 dragons twisted upon torn crimson cloth where the wind had pitched them, wings thrashing as if to take flight again. Somewhere below, Sir Arthur Dayne bled from wounds the spider's sellswords had inflicted. "Forgive me, Sword of the Morning," but he still lived. A deal had been struck. Varys would see the infant kept safe, and Dayne would surrender the tower and its secret, so that none might know whose child cried here. Honor, it seemed, bent when the fate of a realm hung upon an infant's first breath. "I gave him a name," Lyanna whispered. "Jon. My father's friend, Jon Arryn." She coughed scarlet onto her lip and clung tighter. "But tell no one. Say nothing. If the gods are kind, he may take another name someday." Varys nodded. "He shall have more than one. The boy will be a shadow, no, a whisper. I will raise him on words softer than silk. He will never know the sting of bastardy, nor the sword of a usurper." Tears slipped from the corners of her eyes. They gleamed like shards of moonstone in the torchlight. "A dragon," she murmured, slipping back from the brink into some half-remembered peace. "Tell him he is a dragon. Promise me." "I swear it," he said, and meant it. They burned the body before dawn, though desert stars still crowned the sky. Lyanna Stark lay upon a pyre of sweet-cut cedar and thorny ghost grass that Illyria's agents had dragged from the port of Planky Town. And when the first sunbeam crested the crags of the Red Mountains, flame blossomed around her like the blood-jured flowers the Dornish prized. No songs were sung. Sellswords kept uneasy vigil, and Sir Arthur Dayne watched from a litter borne by two of his last comrades, his blade drawn laid across his knees. He said nothing while the child was carried away. Bundled in the watered silk of a pillowcase, Varys had scrounged from Lyanna's chamber. On the fifth turning of the stair, one of the ragged men paused beside the eunuch. The sword in the morning swore an oath never to unsheathe dawn, save in service of a true king. The sellsword muttered, scratching at a gray-flecked beard. "Reckon he'll come for the babe one day." Varys' smile was small. "Reckon he might," he agreed, and made certain the guard's purse was heavier that night than the man's conscience. One may buy silence from any quarter, provided the coin jingles loudly enough. At the tower base waited a mule cart stacked with covered cages, dormant ravens for the Red Keep. Had anyone been fool enough to pry? Beneath the cages, swaddled among straw and old linen, the babe slept, his round face flushed with the uncomplicated exhaustion of all new life. He had suckled twice, spat up once, and presently clutched Varys' little finger in a grip, fierce enough to whiten the nail. Already the spider felt the seeds of a bond root within him, a dangerous indulgence. Affection was death to discretion. Tyrion Lannister would one day chide, but Varys knew it long before ever meeting the clever imp Pardio. If I love him, I may fail him. Yet here in the still hour before sunrise, it seemed impossible not to love this boy grown of tragedy and reckless passion. The journey to the coast was a march through nightmares. 10 leagues of blistering heat by day and clawing chill by night. Twice they skirted riders wearing black-bannered stags, Robert Baratheon's outriders, scouring for any sign of dragon spawn. Once they chanced on a clutch of Dornish scouts fresh from Starfall. Varys scattered gold among them as if he shared the same contempt for Targaryen tyranny, and the Dornish, always eager to cheat a lion or a wolf, let his wagon pass. In the shadow of the Ghost Hill, an arrow whistled from a ravine and took one of his hired mutes in the throat. The cartmaster never slowed. Every man who stirred toward the cages heard the ravens shriek and saw the muzzle of a Dornish sunspire viper. Varys kept coiled among the straw dywite. Word of that viper would reach Planky Town ahead of them. Just another mad curiosity whispered of the spider. When at last they glimpsed the summer sea, haze veiled the water in molten silver. A cog flying Pentoshi blue bobbed in the shallows, her crew loitering with frantic patience. Captain, a gilded eunuch from the pleasure barges of Norvos, offered no greeting beyond a curt nod. For thrice his usual fee Varys had purchased not only his silence, but also his ship, her hold, her men, and her gaze, which he instructed be fixed perpetually westward, lest some brazen fool glimpse what slept below deck. They sailed at night, with no lanterns, hugging the jagged Dornish coast until even the gulls lost courage. Each day the babe grew stronger, his squalls louder. The wet nurse, a Lyseni courtesan, whose debt Illyrio Mopatis had purchased solely to rent her milk, cooed a litany of nonsense in that airy, sing-song tongue the free cities called Valyrian, ancient yet ever-changing. Varys allowed himself the slightest indulgence. He sang softly in the low, throaty language of Myr, a lullaby remembered from boyhood, stolen long before thieves took his manhood. The boy quieted. When he slept, Varys studied him, the whisper of silver in downy hair, the stubborn jut of a jaw that spoke of Northmen, and beneath his left eye a faint birthmark, in the shape of a crescent, crimson as fresh wax. "I shall call you Aemon in my heart," he thought. But aloud he murmured, "Sleep, little dragon. The world you wake to will not know your flame for many years." Pentos greeted them with perfumed fog and the boom of harbor bells. The ill-born, merchants muttered behind cautious palms, for none dared name Illyrio Mopatis in public. His manse rose above tiled roofs like a fat marble lotus, its minarets capped with golden domes that flashed even through the mist. Silk awnings fluttered from every balcony, each dyed in hues more extravagant than the last: cobalt, amethyst, saffron, jade. And from the harbor the mansion resembled little more than a vast jeweler's box dropped upon a city of mud and chalk. Within its walls waited Illyrio himself, resplendent in robes the color of ripe persimmon. Rings cluttered every finger, and his perfumed beard glistened with oils rare as sunset tears. He descended from a marble dais, with the stately grace of a man half his considerable girth. "My dearest of friends," he breathed, arms spread like a father welcoming home a prodigal son. "You arrive at last, and with such a treasure more precious than any dragon egg." At the sight of the infant he blinked, and for an instant even avarice faltered before wonder. "Is it truly him?" "The last, perhaps," Varys said, cradling the bundle close. "King's Landing belongs to the wolf now, or will by the turning of the moon. Storm's End flies the stag. Dragonstone may yet burn, but even if Viserys lives, he is only a boy himself. And this one, well," he angled the babe toward candlelight. Tiny eyelids fluttered, revealing irises the deep violet of dusk on the narrow sea. "A dragon cannot rule when still mewling at the breast. So we will raise him, shape him, teach him patience and subtlety, and the day will come when Westeros tires of the stag's wrath and the lion's greed. On that day, Illyrio, a dragon will be most welcome." Illyrio's smile widened. "The dragon will want silver for swords, gold for sail sails. He shall have it." Varys patted the merchant's fleshy arm. "And you shall have gratitude deeper than any coffer. Remember Aegon the Conqueror. He rewarded every friend 10 times over. Our Aegon will be no less generous." "Aegon," Illyrio cocked an eyebrow. "A name the small folk loved," Varys explained. "But do not fret. He will collect names as other children gather wooden toys. Jon," the girl called him. "In time he may answer to Rhaegar, or Jaehaerys, or Daeron. Let him be many men, so that when he claims the Iron Throne, every faction may claim him in turn." The babe yawned at that, as if amused by politics. His fist tightened around a lock of Varys' satin sleeve, tugging with surprising insistence. Illyrio chuckled, a deep, rolling sound. "He has your cunning already, my friend. See how he binds his savior in chains of silk." Chains indeed. Varys felt them, invisible yet unyielding. He had woven such snares around half the courts of 2 continents, trailing secrets like spider silk. But this chain differed. "If I fail him, I fail the realm," he thought. "And if I love him too much, I may fail him all the same." The paradox tasted of ash. "Prepare the solar overlooking the lemon garden," Varys said, turning toward an archway crowned by a mosaic of dancing maidens. "He will sleep there where the air is sweet. No rats. No drafts. Post silent sisters at every corner. Twins, if you can find them, so each may watch the other." He listed 20 more demands. A maester of the freehold to measure the boy's humors, a septa of gentle voice to teach letters, a Braavosi sword instructor come his 4th name day, and above all, anonymity. No heralds, no lavish feasts. The servants must believe the child an orphan Illyrio had taken in pity. Pity, after all, was the cheapest coin. "Pity," Illyrio echoed with amusement. "Of course." Varys stroked the baby's scalp. "What else moves men to saintly generosity?" Illyrio's laughter echoed through pillared halls. Harmless, hollow. And what of the eunuch who braves a usurper's wrath and crosses seas to save one helpless babe? What moves him, I wonder? "Ambition," Varys answered without pause. "And perhaps a memory." "Of what?" "Of being helpless," he said softly. Above them, arched ceilings glittered with painted constellations. One star, a pearl-white dot set in indigo, fixed Varys as he walked. Legend named it the Tear of Lys, a gem cast into the sky by a lovelorn goddess. How fitting, he mused. Tears above, tears below, and a child in between. The gods must weep for us all. Years passed, counted first in toothless grins, then toddling steps, and later in a boy's endless questions. "Why does the moon follow the ship?" he asked, when Illyria's galley carried them along the Rhoyne, its swollen face rippling like quicksilver upon night water. "Does it watch me?" Varys sat wrapped in shadow, half wishing it would swallow him whole, so the boy might forget he was ever there. Yet he answered, "The moon watches all who carry dragon blood. That is why you must never fear it." "And the sun? Does it watch too?" "And now and now." The sun blinds itself in its own pride. Let fools court its favor. You shall find power in the quiet glow of smaller things. He had meant to speak a riddle, but the boy only nodded, accepting wisdom as easily as he accepted milk. At 4, he loved maps. They spread them across tiled floors, tiny islands of parchment catching citron-scented breezes. He pressed ink-blot fingers to rivers and mountains, daring Varys to name each. If the eunuch stumbled, the boy scolded him in earnest. A king must know his realm, he pronounced, violet eyes flashing. All of it, even the bits no one cares about. So he must. Varys smiled, though unease pricked at him like thorns. The child's certainty grew as quick as his limbs. He wielded curiosity like a sword. Some mornings Varys woke to find him perched atop a balcony rail, staring east toward the Bone Mountains. Other days he hid behind arbor boughs just to see how long the guards would seek him. Each jest ended with bowing heads and muttered apologies. But the boy heard no contrition, only the echo of hollow ritual. One afternoon Feather, a Pentoshi freedwoman who taught him letters, ran weeping from the solar. He told me, she sobbed to Varys, that my father sold me, and my brothers, and that the world is a market where names are traded cheaper than figs. He is 5. How can a babe know such cruelty? Varys found the child standing on a low stool, quill in hand, copying high Valyrian glyphs onto papyrus. Ink stained his knuckles. A black mirror to the birthmark below his eye. Did you speak harshly to Feather? Varys asked. The boy shrugged. She said all men are good in the Seven's eyes. I told her goodness costs silver, and some folk haven't any. He flicked ink from the quill. Is that cruel? It is truth, Varys allowed. But truth can cut. So can lies. Which cuts deeper? That depends who wields them. The boy turned, studying Varys with unsettling calm. And what do you wield? My tongue, he said, glancing at the ink-splattered page. And pens when I must. Words then. Words. The child nodded as if some private puzzle had slid neatly into place. A quiet understanding blossomed in his gaze. Solemn, ancient. For a heartbeat, Varys felt the future loom. Heavy as a storm cloud, full of thunder yet unborn. The first named day he celebrated as Aegon dawned beneath skies streaked in saffron. A small thing, held in a curtained courtyard where only Illyria's most trusted servants walked, yet it marked a shift no less monumental than a new age. One could not raise a king without a king's name. Like thin paper dragged through oil, identity soaked into him until even the boy could no longer recall being anyone else. Aegon. Aemon in the quiet of Varys' heart. Jon in a graveyard of secrets where Lyanna Stark lay cold. Too many names perhaps, but each served a purpose. One to charm the small folk, one to hollow the old blood, one to haunt Varys' dreams. On the boy's 7th name day, Illyrio gifted him a dagger from Cahor, its dragonbone hilt inlaid with chips of jade. He sliced 3 cushions to ribbons before dusk, then begged sword lessons. Varys arranged for an aging bravo named Sena the Tall to teach footwork. Wooden wasters at first, then blunted steel. Sena was patient, fierce, and thrice Varys' height, yet often emerged disarmed, laughing, blood dripping from split knuckles. He learns like wildfire leaps. The bravo wheezed between draughts of apricot wine. By 9 he will shame princes. By 12 he will shame us all. And so, time marched. Illyrio's manse sprouted new wings to house the ever-growing library Varys amassed. Scrolls on Westerosi heraldry, treatises on free city trade, myths from Sotherios. The boy devoured them, quoting lineages till the cook refused to carve boar lest he be quizzed upon the house that bore pale boar rampant. He sparred in the mornings, debated philosophy at noon, and in the cool dusk, perched atop roof tiles, listening to the songs of flyboats drifting up the Honeywine. A prince in all but crown, though he had never worn silk finer than Illyria's cast-offs. Even luxury was rationed, comforts enough to foster loyalty, never enough to rot will. One winter a bloody flux swept Pentos. The city gates barred themselves, corpses piled by the quay, thin arms clutching bellies gone slack. Varys forbade Aegon the courtyards, but the boy slipped free. When guards found him at sundown, he knelt beside cat-eaten bodies, tears silent upon his cheeks. "Why must they die?" he asked that night when Varys scolded him for disobedience. "They did nothing. Famine, plague. These things heed no virtue," Varys replied. "The world turns on the suffering of the poor. That is wrong. It is real." Aegon's small jaw clenched. "Then I will make something else real. Something better." Many children vowed such things. Come manhood most forgot. Yet when Varys looked at him, he believed. News arrived from Westeros, on wings dark and furtive. Robert Baratheon, once rebel, now king beneath banners rotten with wine. Eddard Stark, lord of Winterfell, soon hand of the king, dragons dead, burned, broken. But children grew there too. Cersei's blonde babes, Ned's wolf cubs. Names to note on parchments, threats for tomorrow. And across the narrow sea, Viserys Targaryen wandered city to city, railing at the injustice of exile, while his sister Daenerys matured in the shadow of his hunger for crowns. 2 dragons still alive, yet neither aware of the darker flame warming its wings in Pentos. The beggar king, Illyrio, scoffed one afternoon, waving a silk fan over a bowl of chilled persimmons. He prates of conquest yet cannot afford new boots. 10,000 Dothraki will not follow a barefoot king. Perhaps not, Varys agreed. But they might follow a barefoot queen if seduced properly. And if they do, Westeros will choke on fear. "Man," Illyrio licked juice from his beard. "Fear is sweet, my friend. Sweet as grief. Sweeter than love." Varys glanced to where Aegon practiced letters beside a lattice window. Sunlight gilded his hair in a faint silver halo. "Sweet, perhaps," he murmured. "But dangerous. Viserys may squander any chance for our boy if he wages war too soon." "We could see him removed," Illyrio offered delicately. "No." The word was iron. "Let Viserys strut and flail. He plays the mummer's dragon, so our true heir may grow unshadowed." "Dayne?" Illyrio's sigh steamed the bowl. "You coddle the boy." "Because I must. And when the day comes to send him into battle, will you still coddle him then?" Varys set a date pit on his tongue, tasted its bitterness. "On that day, I will remember why I began." Snow fell in Pentos once every decade. A miracle so rare traders bottled the meltwater in tiny vials and sold it for potions. It fell the winter Aegon turned 10, sifting over the lemon garden while he and Varys mapped the free cities anew. Each flake melted upon the parchment. Aegon laughed and the sound sliced Varys open. The spider bled, unseen. "Tell me of the wall," the boy begged. White grains clinging to his lashes. Of the frozen river and the black brothers, who wear no crowns but guard them all. So Varys spoke of stones and ice, of wildlings, giants, and grumpkins. Of old man's tales he had gleaned secondhand from spies in Winterfell. Aegon listened, cheeks flushed, until finally he asked, "Will they kneel when I come? If you win their hearts. And if I do not, then they will stand, proud and cold as the frost itself." Aegon's gaze drifted to the snow-coated lemon trees. "I would rather friends than subjects," he murmured. The words drifted between them, light as the snow that settled upon Varys' shoulders. For the first time in his long serpentine life, he wondered if all his threads would weave the tapestry he intended, or whether they would not, tangle and strangle the boy he loved. The year drew toward spring when Sir Arthur Dayne found them. He came not as the sword of the morning but as a pilgrim. Cloaked in road dust, eyes hollowed by years of hiding, dawn lay beneath gray wool wrapped with hempen twine. He walked through Illyrio's gilded archway without challenge. The guards lay insensate, drugged by a draught he brewed from desert poppy. Varys discovered him in the solar at high noon, the bright Pentoshi sun limning the night's long silver hair like wires of light. The boy sat opposite him, feet dangling, palms folded upon his knees. A student before a master. "You are late," Aegon said. Dayne's smile was faint. "The road is long." and dangerous. Not for those who remember their stars. Aegon's chin lifted. Then teach me to remember mine. Varys stepped forward. My prince, he began, cold filling his veins. Aegon did not turn. Father, he said. Name they used only in these walls, safe behind 7 locked doors. This is my sword master. Varys met Dayne's gaze across a gulf of memory. Blood upon bleached sand, a babe wailing, a tower aflame by dawn. The knight inclined his head. You kept your word, Lord Varys. Now I keep mine. Dayne. The babe had lived, and the dragon's claws, it seemed, had come to claim their due. That night, Varys climbed the highest turret of Illyria's manse. Wind snatched at his robes, carrying scents of brine and spiced lamp oil from the harbor. Below, the city thrummed. 1,000,000 souls packed in crooked streets, each dreaming their small, hungry dreams. Above, stars wove tapestries, older than Valyria. Somewhere among them shone the tear of Lys. He closed his eyes. In darkness, he saw roads branching like veins across continents, every path leading to a throne of jagged iron. Upon it sat a boy grown tall, violet eyes shadowed by grief and triumph. A white blade across his knees, and 3 dragons, 3, winging through smoky banners. The vision pulsed, bright as forge fire, then flickered. 5 hours, 5 months, 5 years. Time was a plaything. When he opened his eyes, snow fluttered again, impossibly dancing between stars and sea. He caught a flake on his tongue. It tasted of salt. Beneath the lemon trees, Aegon Targaryen, Jon Snow no more, dreamed of walls of ice and crowns of fire. Dayne would hone him, Illyria would fund him, and Varys would whisper him into legend. The 7, the many-faced god, even the red god with his bleeding comets, all would conspire or perish. Yet a quieter voice lingered in Varys' memory. Promise me he will live. He wrapped his arms around himself, shivering not from cold, but from the fear that he had misunderstood the promise. To live was more than to breathe. It was to choose, to love, to be free of the chains forged by another's ambition. Could a hidden king ever be free? Far below, a child's laughter echoed, sharp as the crack of ice upon a frozen river. Varys drew a breath, and the snow dissolved into mist. Dawn would come, and with it, new plots, new bargains. For now, he let the silence settle, a thin veil between hope and dread, and listened to the sleeping city hum, a web of secrets, curled tight around the heart of a single boy destined to burn or save a world that did not know his name. Oh, Jenny. The storm came in from the shivering sea without warning, carried on a wind as sharp as the first breath of winter. Pentos had not known such cold since the century of the sea snakes, when icebergs drifted past the hook like white leviathans. Shoresmen cursed into their beards, fishermen dragged their boats half a league inland, and the mighty Rose Gate froze upon its bronze hinges. In Illyria's manse, braziers blazed day and night, yet drafts crept through the marble like sly assassins, licking at the rugs and fluttering chamber tapestries, so that the lions and manticores, stitched there, appeared to breathe. Aegon insisted on training in the courtyard, even as sleet toyed with the lemon trees. Sir Arthur Dayne planted himself at the boy's back, cloak thrashing, dawn naked in his hands. The sword drank the gray light, its milk-white steel smiling with an innocence that belied its lineage of slaughter. They sparred until numbness climbed their calves, until Aegon's boots left prints in the powder forming over mosaic tiles. 9 passes, then 12, then 20. Feints and ripostes, parries that kissed so close Aegon swore he could feel frost evaporate off the blade's edge. Varys watched from an upper gallery where wind could not pry beneath his fox fur collar. Every clang spoke of danger but also of necessity. Dayne had come to teach the boy not only how to wield a blade, but when to sheath it. By Varys' count, this was the 63rd lesson since dawn 3 days prior. Dayne believed in momentum. Skill hammered thrice daily, forged through exhaustion. At night, he told Aegon stories of kings who died on their knees, because they mistook chivalry for strength, valor for cunning. Once, when Varys suggested sparing the boy's wrists fresh bruises, the Sword of the Morning stared him down until the eunuch felt his own throat exposed. "He must bleed before he can make others bleed," Dayne said. "He must live long enough to bleed," Varys replied. Dayne's answering smile was as thin as dawn's edge. "Then pray his enemies keep softer tutors." That snow-cursed winter stretched into an endless season. Aegon turned 11 beneath an ice-white sky. Illyrio hired carolers to serenade him with low, haunting hymns, but the boy waved them away. His name-day gift was a pair of leather gauntlets, sewn with fine mail so light it disguised its bite. At first they chafed. Soon he refused to remove them even to eat. The gauntlets became part of him, like the crescent birthmark below his eye. Proof he was meant for iron. Weeks later, icicles cracked loose from roof gutters and speared a bronze courtier statue in the lemon garden, splitting it from crown to knee. The incident drew laughter from servants and a muttered jest from Illyrio about the fates mocking vanity. Aegon alone seemed sober. He traced the rent metal with gloved fingers, and later asked Varys how many kings had died undeserved deaths. The eunuch answered with a roll of rulers from Essos to Yeti. Men toppled by plague, famine, storms at sea, or simple mischance. Did any die content? Aegon asked at last. Contentment is a dream, Varys said. A king lives between nightmare and dawn. That is no life. It is the only life a throne gives. Aegon's brows knit over eyes, the color of half-melted amethyst. Then I shall fashion a new throne, he murmured. One that leaves room for rest. Spring thaw arrived by decree of the gods in Illyria's ledger. Trade caravans resumed their rattling pilgrimage over the Valyrian roads, coffers swelled with spice tariffs and wine tithes. When the first green shoot dared pierce the sodden soil, Varys announced that Aegon would journey beyond Pentos' walls for the first true tour of the free cities. It is long past time you meet the realm you are to conquer, he told the boy. Dayne stood behind him, silent as the white shadow he had become. The galley Sunkiss left harbor at dawn, an unremarkable grain runner freshly scrubbed of her usual stench of millet. Only 3 companions joined Aegon. Dayne, Varys, and Captain Mirio, a mute Volantine whose face was all scar and solemnity. No silks, no guards in flashy helms. They traveled as refugees fleeing plague, their purses thin, their eyes keen. Illyrio protested the austerity, but Varys held firm. A prince drowned in luxury seldom braved deeper waters. Tyrosh lay first on their route, a city of dyes and sighs, where even fleas painted themselves purple to fit fashion. They entered through the ratskin gate alongside farmers and fishwives. Aegon's cloak bore the patch of a Rhoynish trader. Dayne used a depot's forge to blacken the bright stars on dawn's pommel. Varys donned the guise of a bald scribe, ink-stained and toothless. Only the boy's eyes might betray them, so he kept his hood low. For 3 days, they dwelt among Taroshi backstreets. Dayne hired them rooms above a wine sink, whose owner mistook the knight for a sellsword, fallen on lean fortune, and demanded payment in stories of western battlefields. Dayne obliged, recounting the trident in grim detail, until the barkeep wept ale into his beard. Aegon listened, absorbing each word like sand soaks blood. On the 4th night, Varys arranged passage to Myr. Hushed in candlelit corners, he paid silver for whispered tales. Of Volantis arming, of Lys feuding, of Westerosi merchants seeking alliance with the free cities while their king grew fat and complacent. Every rumor served a purpose. The boy needed to learn that truth's skin shed more often than a snake's. Their second port, Myr, unfolded in a lattice of canals that steamed beneath summer's first blaze. Artisans hawked lace so fine it might pass water without wetting, crystal lenses that magnified flame, and perfumes brewed from night-blooming stars. Dayne purchased an astrolabe for Aegon. The boy spent hours on deck aligning the brass rings, plotting the path of invisible comets. One dusk he approached Varys with a calculation scrawled in charcoal across sailcloth. The sun will vanish above Neath 5 days hence, he said. So the brass ring says, a total eclipse. Varys studied the smudged glyphs. Very likely, he conceded. We will sail there. We sail for Volantis tomorrow. Then we will sail for Na afterward. Hardness glinted under the boy's youthful calm. I wish to see the world blink. Blink the world did. They reached the Isle of Butterflies with hours to spare. Locals warned of fever-winged insects and sea devils, but Dayne cut a path through emerald jungle until they stood upon a low hill ringed with white orchids. The sky faded from sapphire to iron, as though some god had drawn a shroud over creation. When darkness swallowed the last sliver of gold, the air itself seemed to hush. Birds stilled on branches, palm fronds froze, mid-sway. In that breath-holding void, Aegon stepped forward, hands unclenched. "This is realm and crown," he whispered to the encircling dusk. "Not iron, not blood alone, but wonder. When I rule, I will give them wonder enough to eclipse all sorrow." The moon slid past the sun's face. Light roared back so sudden it cracked shadows like breaking glass. Dayne exhaled the breath he'd been holding. Varys realized his cheeks were damp. Months later, aboard a fat-bellied Braavosi cog bound for Lies, Aegon asked his first question about Viserys. "Illyrio calls him the Beggar King, but he is my kin. Why do we not reach to him?" "Because kinship is not allegiance," Varys said, more sharply than intended. "He grows desperate, and desperation breeds folly. One reckless uncle can undo 3 decades of planning. Yet you risked the realm for me, an infant, a risk greater than any uncle. I risked all for what you might become, not merely for what you were. And Viserys might yet become more." Varys opened his mouth. "Shut it." He felt Dayne's gaze on him, cold as salt spray. Perhaps he conceded at last. "When you are older, we will test that might. Until then, observe him from afar. A wise king studies his pieces before moving them." Aegon turned to the narrowing horizon. "And what piece will he be on my board?" "That depends whether he marches on feet," Dayne began, then lifted a corner of his mouth. "Or kneels on stumps." Aegon did not smile. "Pieces are sacrificed," he said. "I would rather make allies." "An ally can become a sacrifice," Varys warned. "So can a father," the boy replied, swinging away. Varys felt the words strike a hidden bruise. Dayne made no sound. But later that night he found Varys in the galley and offered a single nod. Acknowledgement of a shared dread. The boy was learning too quickly. On the 9th day of their stay in Lys, the mask tore. A fisher girl recognized Dayne's silhouette as he strode along the pier in dusk's dying light. She had seen him once, years earlier, riding through the stepstones with banners of the Reach. The fisher girl told her lover. A captain of the Second Sons, who told a broker, who told a Myrish courier, who wrote to a Pentoshi spymaster. By dawn, half the Eastern network buzzed with whispers. The sword of the Morning Guards, a silver-haired boy in Lys. Illyrio's raven call reached Dayne before others could act. They slipped from Lys within the hour, sailing under false pennants, hugging shoals thick with shark spawn. In cramped quarters, Aegon asked what doom might follow them. Varys answered honestly. Sellswords hungry for coin, loyalists to the usurper, slavers eager for exotic prize, and perhaps worst, loyal Targaryen zealots who would raise Viserys on their shoulders by shedding this rival's blood. They would kill me to save a dragon they've never met. Aegon marveled. They love an idea, Varys said. Ideas ask no ransom. The boy grew quiet. At night Varys heard him pacing the forecastle deck, until waves drowned his footsteps. Dayne offered to stand watch. Varys forbade it. Aegon must learn to trust the dark alone. 3 nights later, a sleek black galley cut across their bow. No banners, lanterns, dark. Rowers' oars dipped without rhythm. Scouts, not traders. Dayne roused Aegon and pressed him to the mast while Varys disguised him beneath a cloak reeking of tar. Aegon watched the shadow ship slide by silent as regret. Only when its stern lights dimmed to pinpricks did he release his breath. I would have fought, he muttered. Fight air and you tire yourself, Dayne said. But they would have taken me. Only if you're worth taking, Varys replied. When the world thinks you prey, vanish. When the world thinks you myth, return as storm. Aegon did not fully understand, yet he nodded. The lesson, like all the others, would root in time. The voyage ended in Qohor, city of blacksmiths and black blood. Nightfire burned on the Temple of the Lion, staining clouds red with its smoke. They stayed a fortnight, long enough for Dayne to replace seafaring rust with river strength, for Varys to sow false leads pointing to Dorne, and for Aegon to glimpse the unsullied drilling in perfect squares upon the eastern plain. He stood at the parade field dawn after dawn, eyes narrowing each time 9,000 spears snapped in unison. The commander, Grey Cavex, noticed the boy's fascination. One morning he broke formation long enough to approach. This one senses questions. The eunuch soldier said in the curiously formal low Valyrian of his order. Aegon bowed. Your ranks move like one mind. Do you know each other's thoughts? No. This one knows only the horn. The horn commands. Obey the horn, survive. Ignore the horn, die. What of choice? Choice is death. Aegon watched the shield's wheel, a metal wave cresting on dust. Then better to die free. Grey Cavex blinked once, twice, expression unreadable behind cloth that hid his nose and mouth. He returned to his line without response. That night, Varys found a small wooden horn on Aegon's pillow. Smooth, undecorated, its mouthpiece sealed with wax. Did you purchase this? No? The boy rolled the horn between palm and thumb. Cavex left it. What do you see in it? Aegon paused. A warning, he said at last. A chain I must never wear. Varys felt twin threads. Fear and pride, knot around his heart. Their return to Pentos came upon a summer tide heavy with silt. Illyrio welcomed them as prodigals, though his embrace clung too tightly to be wholly affection. The merchant's spies had counted 3 assassination contracts on a silver-haired youth within the past month. 2 names traced back to Westerosi gold. 1 to a Braavosi banker with rumored ties to House Targaryen. You have dangled him like bait above piranha, Illyrio scolded Varys, behind a golden lattice screen in the perfumed study. Better he hear jaws snapping than live death, Varys countered. Now he knows the water's depth. And if the water floods our doorstep? Then we raise the boy higher. Illyrio's eyes flicked toward the hall where Aegon played Savas with a Lyseni tutor. The pieces clicked on lacquered board. Elephants toppling spearmen. Kings cornered by monks. Each capture drew neither exultation nor frown. Only calm calculation. Illyrio shivered. I see the water in him already, he whispered. Deep and dark. Varys smiled, but the merchant's dread echoed his own. The following years unspooled in layers, each season adding a coil to Aegon's growing reputation among those few permitted to know him. In Volantis, he studied tri-ring design beneath the argosy of the cenotaph. In Norvos he sat vigil with bearded priests, and learned how faith could marshal armies faster than fear. One winter, in Lorath, he hunted white seals across drifting bergs, guided by a spear-thick Lorathi woman who taught him to read wind like a book. Every continent gave a lesson. Every city carved another facet of the gem Varys sought to polish. By 15, his height nearly matched Dayne's. His sword arm no longer trembled when Dawn's weight traded from teacher to pupil. Dayne still prevailed in spar, but the gap closed like a line drawn in wet sand as tide approached. During one dusk bout, Aegon slipped inside the knight's guard and laid a practice blade flat against Dayne's throat. Gloved fingers steadied the hilt as if the steel were fragile glass. Yet triumph smoldered in his eyes. Dayne stepped back, touched lacquer edge to bloodless skin, and inclined his head. Well struck, your grace. The honorific weighed more than any sword. Aegon did not correct him. Not long after, a red comet scarred the night, visible even through city torch glow. Superstitions blossomed like mold. Sailors in the Rogar docks swore it heralded Valyria reborn. Dockside whores named it the Bleeding Queen for its crimson streak. Aegon climbed the highest watchtower and stared until the comet's tail burned into his retinas. What omen do you say? Varys asked. Ascending winded. A spear, Aegon replied. Thrown across the world. Toward Westeros. Toward us all. Denied. The eunuch's gaze lingered on the boy's profile. Sharp nose, high cheekbones, silver lashes. Some call it dragon fire. Then let them. He did not look away. When I rule, such portents will be understood by scholars, not charlatans. And if the scholars disagree, I will teach them humility. Varys left him studying the sky until dawn painted the comet pale. Word of Daenerys Targaryen's marriage to Khal Drogo reached Pentos 2 months later. Illyrio relayed the tidings with thinly veiled satisfaction. His hand, after all, had guided the bargain. He expected Aegon to protest, yet the prince listened, eyes distant, then asked for parchment and ink. That evening Varys discovered a list of the Dothraki Khalasars, pinned to a map by daggers. Distances, supply routes, known rivalries, scribbled notes crowded the margins. She moves west, Aegon said, not glancing up. Drogo will conquer the Lazarene by fall, the Giscari by spring. If he lives, he will cross the sea before I come of age. And if he dies, his riders will splinter. Most will not follow a foreign queen, dragon, or no. You plot her downfall? I plot all paths. She is family, but so is Viserys, and either could kill me. He rose, face shadowed by torchlight. Blood means nothing without purpose. Varys inclined his head, though the phrase struck him as if spoken by the stranger. On the day Aegon bared his arm for the tattoo needle, Varys understood the boy had surpassed his guardians. High in a vase Toloro ruin, under silent watch of a ghost city, a Carthene artist inked a single line of Valyrian script down the inner forearm. Valor Morgulis, in letters so fine they could have been spider silk. The needle pricked the skin thrice per heartbeat. Not once did the boy flinch. All men must die, Varys translated wearily. Hardly an uplifting motto. All men must serve first, Aegon replied. Including kings. Some say kings serve only themselves. Then those kings fail. He bound the arm in linen and silk, though Aegon insisted on wearing the mark bare by nightfall. When the Raven spoke of Robert Baratheon's sudden death on a boar hunt, Illyrio declared a feast. The usurper's cub would inherit, and a realm led by a child was a realm ripe for dragons. Servants streamed through the manse, laying tapestries of harvest scenes, stacking candied dates into towers taller than Varys. Yet Aegon remained in the practice yard, splitting straw dummies until Dawn's blunted sister sword bent in his grip. Why do you not celebrate? Dayne called after the fourth splintered dummy hit the sand. Because the game grows fiercer, Aegon said, panting. Joffrey is a lion wearing a stag's crown, Ned Stark is hand, and the wolves will howl when the cub bleeds. You foresee war. I smell it. Varys watched the prince scratch rivers and sigils in the dust with his blade tip. The lines converged on King's Landing. Soon, Aegon announced, stabbing down on the capital's mark. We must move. Your Grace, Varys murmured. You are barely 16. Old enough to die, Aegon answered. Thus, old enough to lead. Dayne sheathed half-bent steel. When will we tell him? He asked Varys after the boy retreated inside. Tell him what? Varys pretended, though the night saw through it. The truth of his birth, the Lady of the Tower, the promise, the lies that saved him. He deserves to choose his name. Oh, choice can kill. Yet you raised him to be king. Kings must live before they rule. Dayne touched the crescent beneath Aegon's window, a silent reminder, and left Varys to his unease. That year autumn came early, draping Pentos in copper vines. Partridges nested in pergolas, their calls echoing through hallways at dawn. Aegon spent long hours with Illyria's spies, learning the art of ledger reading. How coin changed hearts faster than crown decrees. He mastered 3 dialects of Giscari low before winter, could read Volantine glyphs by starlight. Letters from across Essos addressed him under 10 aliases. The Swan of Silk, the Ember Prince, the Solitaire. Each message carried coded praise, each code traced back to Varys' weaving. Yet the tangle grew thicker. Reports placed Viserys slain by molten gold, Daenerys trailing a horde across the Red Waste. Joffrey sat the Iron Throne, Sansa Stark a hostage, Robb Stark marching south. Renly camped beneath banners bright as summer. Stannis brooded on Dragonstone. And in the north, a bastard named Jon Snow took vows at the Wall. Aegon studied that last name for a long while. "Do you believe in true names, father?" he asked at last. "I believe names are tools." "Then what tool is Jon?" "Perhaps a mirror." Varys folded the parchment. "Ignore him. His struggles matter little to ours." "Every struggle matters," Aegon said, "if it moves the board." Varys tasted ash. The taste of a promise breaking. The night Aegon first killed. The moon was a sliver so thin it could have sliced the world. They were still in Pentos, but within an hour's ride of the city walls, where vineyards rolled down to marshes choked by cattail and slime-green channels. A band of slavers operating rogue of the Magisters had seized a dozen Oravashi refugees, planning to sell them piecemeal by covert barges. Varys allowed rumor to reach Aegon. The boy insisted on leading the rescue. Dayne accompanied him, of course, but Aegon donned dark mail and a half-helm of Cohoric make, leaving no sigil visible. They approached silently under willow shadow. One guard stood watch beneath a hanging lantern. Easy prey. Aegon crept nearer, blade poised. Varys, hiding among reeds, thought to signal Dayne, but the knight watched unmoving. Steel-sheared flesh. The guard gurgled, hands rising to cradle the gaping wound before awareness fled. Aegon eased the corpse to mud and stared at crimson soaking his gloves, the ones Illyrio had gifted long ago. For a breath, he shook. Then he wiped the blade on reeds and advanced. By dawn the captives rode free behind them, leaving 6 corpses' guts up for scavengers. Aegon spoke not a word on the journey back. Only when they reached the manse did he halt, strip off the gloves, and hurl them into the brazier. Dayne remained a silent sentinel in the courtyard. Varys approached. "The first cut is always longest," he offered. Aegon's eyes reflected flame. "He never saw me. That is mercy." "No, father. Mercy is seeing and still sparing." "And would you have spared him?" Silence. Fire cracked, devouring leather. Finally he whispered, "It was necessary, and necessity is a king's companion. My only companion, it seems." Dayne stepped forward then. "Not only," he said, laying Dawn's hilt across his palms. "Take up your burden, your grace. Bear it so that we may bear ours for you." Aegon looked at the white blade. In flecks of emberlight, it gleamed as if forged from Dawn's first tear. His fingers grazed the grip, but did not claim it. "Soon," he said, voice dry as cinders. "Not yet." He walked away, and for the first time Varys saw Dayne's certainty falter. Winter roses bloomed in the lemon garden the morning Maester Illyrio. So the man styled himself now, received tidings of a wildfire inferno that consumed the hand of the king and half the royal court. Starks marched, Lannisters burned, Baratheons bled each other on open fields. Varys delivered the scrolls to Aegon personally. "The realm tears itself apart," the prince observed, rolling wax crumbs between thumb and forefinger. "You have always said chaos births opportunity. Chaos also devours the unready." Aegon leaned against a column, winter roses scattering petals round his boots. "Ready or not, the moment nears. The lion wars the wolf and stag, dragons hatch in the east, and a pale colt rides north of the wall. Even stones speak of prophecy." "Prophecy is wind," Varys said. "It fills sails, but also dashes ships against cliffs. Then we must steer shrewdly." He requested an audience of Pentos' prince, a courtesy denied commoners. Illyrio balked, but Aegon insisted, without pomp, a private council. They met in the old Senate chamber ringed with pillars carved like burning torches. Only Varys, Illyrio, and Dayne attended. Aegon addressed the prince with respect, but his words cut like sails trimmed in a storm. "You dread that war will spill across the narrow sea," he said. "I offer a shield. Fund my claim, lend ships, pledge Pentos' neutrality in Westerosi affairs, and when I win, your city shall trade toll-free for a generation." The prince raised thinning brows. "You are a rumor born in shadows. Why should I place coin upon a rumor?" Aegon stepped to the dais and drew a parchment from within his sleeve. Seals ringed its edge. Some Varys recognized. The tri-whip of Astapor, the daggerfish of House Quentis of Myr, the gear of Tolos. 50 lesser marks crowded the gaps. Because rumors breed, Aegon said, and I have bred them to loyalty. He handed the prince a black wax tablet heavy as gilt. Within, you will find records of your Magister's private ledgers. Taxes unpaid. Bribes accepted. Secrets worth more than coin. Keep them or trade them for alliances sworn to me. Either path secures your throne. The prince fingered the tablet like a man assessing fine poison. And if I refuse? Then I remain a rumor, Aegon replied. But your secrets remain unguarded. Silence rippled across marble. Dayne rested his palm casually on Dawn's hilt, though he needed no threat. The prince read his future in the boy's eyes and bowed. When they left, Illyrio wiped sweat from his beard. You have grown sharper than all my daggers, he muttered. Aegon smiled, but the curve held sorrow. A dagger cuts both ways, uncle. After that council, Varys could delay the truth no longer. He summoned Aegon to the candlelit library at midnight. Dust motes drifted like quiet spirits among scroll towers. Dawn rested on a velvet cloth between them. There was a tower in Dorne, he began. A bed of blood, a promise given, and a lie born to guard you. He spoke of Lyanna, of Rhaegar, of Arthur Dayne's surrender, of a stillborn decoy buried beneath roses. He told of the wet nurse who became a Leesney courtesan again, of the mule cart with its cages of ravens, of the sword that spared the child but swore vengeance on the world. He spoke until his throat cracked like old parchment. Dayne added the edges Varys avoided, how Rhaegar believed the song of ice and fire would rise from his blood, how dawn shone brightest when held above the boy's cradle. Aegon listened without moving. Only once did he interrupt. Why did you wait? Because every truth has two edges. As long as you did not know, you were safe from one of them. What edge is that? Destiny, Varys said. The boy closed his eyes. Candlelight painted the crescent birthmark red. When he opened them, dawn, not the blade, but first pale light of morning, stole through lattice windows. Does my mother sleep in Dorne? He asked softly. She sleeps in legend, Varys answered. And in the realm you will shape. And my name. You have many. Yet upon your birth pillow the wolf maiden, whispered Jon. No, Mimtao. Aegon laid a hand on the white sword. Then Jon I shall be, he said, when no throne demands otherwise. Dayne's shoulders eased. Varys felt something unseen settle, like dust after thunder. Swear it, the boy said. Swear that whatever crown I wear, I may still be Jon beneath. Varys fell to one knee. By the ghost of the tower, he vowed. I swear. Dayne crossed dawn over the pledge. By morning's first star, he intoned. I swear. The boy, no, the king-to-be, touched steel, binding their oaths. 3 nights later, a red crab showed its back in harbor, sign from the old stories that storms approach unseen. Varys gathered his scrolls, Illyrio weighed his ledgers, Dayne sharpened dawn. Aegon climbed the tower once more. The comet's tail had faded to faint rust, but the sky retained its bruise. He stood alone, wind tugging silver hair loose. Past the breakers, the narrow sea lay slick as dark glass, reflecting stars that scrawled destinies across water. Somewhere beyond, dragon wings indeed beat, and wolves howled beneath shifting banners, and lions sharpened claws on bones of friends. All his lessons, all his sins, all their hopes converged on that unseen coast. In the hush between breaths, he lifted the little wooden horn Grey Kavix had given him years before. The wax seal remained unbroken. Slowly, he peeled it away. No sound spilled forth, only emptiness. He raised it to his lips. Poised to summon armies or silence, he did not yet know. Below, Varys watched from the courtyard. He could see nothing of the boy's face, only the silhouette. A spearhead poised against the sky. He thought of promises made beneath dying torches and living stars. Whatever sound the horn made, the realm would echo it. Aegon lowered the horn, unblown, and set it on the crenellations as dawn bled over the horizon. He chose, for this moment, silence. Yet the choice itself resounded louder than any call. When he descended the tower at sunrise, he strode with purpose, unmarred by doubt. Varys stepped forward, but the boy, no, the man, spoke first. "Ready my ship," he said. "The narrow sea awaits." "And our banner?" Varys asked, heart thundering. A faint smile tugged the crescent scar. "A dragon," Jon said, clad in wolf shadow. So they began the voyage west, with swords to guard and whispers to guide, toward a realm ablaze in chaos, toward the song of ice and fire yet to be sung. Kai. Mist rolled across the Taroshi blue deck planks, coiling around boots and belaying pins like living rope. It softened every edge of the cog lioness of Lys, until vessel and sea seemed carved from the same pale dream. Dawn's first light hid behind slate clouds, painting everything in shades of ghost steel. No gulls cried, no oars splashed, only the slow creak of hemp rigging and the distant churn of tide where the narrow sea heaved against itself. Jon Snow, Aegon Targaryen, stood amidships beside the mainmast, cloak snapping faintly in the uncanny hush. He wore no sigils, only charcoal wool, boiled leather pauldrons, and fingerless gloves that bared the black tattoo of Valyrian script down his left forearm. Beside him, Sir Arthur Dayne checked the lashings on a tar-covered crate. His hair, once silver bright, had dulled to storm-cloud gray, but his grip on the knots was sure as ever. Varys emerged from the aft companionway, hood raised against salt and chill. Pale lanterns swayed in his hand, painting his round face a dim citrine. "The pilot charts us through the stepstones," he said, voice muffled by scarf and fog. "Pirate waters. We may sight sails by dusk." Jon's gaze never left the vague line where sea met sky. "Let them sight us first," he replied. "Fear will soften any captain's spine." Dayne's chuckle rumbled deep. "Presuming they know whom they've found, they will know the gold," Jon said. Indeed, the lioness's hold brimmed with Illyrio's coin. 50 chests of Pentoshi reals stamped with the twin faces of the magna of those city-states. Each chest padded in carded wool against clang and clatter. 10 more chests held smaller, deadlier gifts. Dragonfire in copper spheres no bigger than quail eggs, stolen from a merchant of Korth who thought them curios. A single sphere tossed into a powder magazine could singe a ship from water to stars. Jon intended them as greetings for the first Westerosi lord, who mistook him for prey. Fog parted, as if answering that thought, revealing the pale silhouette of a war galley 2 cables south. Long, low, and lean oar banks slotted under a single lateen sail. Dark pennants limped from its mast, unmarked by heraldic dye. A reaver, or worse, a free captain playing sell sail, until the richer prize appeared. Dayne's hand fell to Dawn's hilt. "Shall we run?" Jon shook his head. "No. Bring our colors." Varys blinked. "Which colors, my prince?" "None." Jon strode toward the starboard rail. "Let the mist be our banner." Within a half hour, the galley altered course, angling to intercept. The lioness did not flee. Rowers' drums boomed across the water, low as a bull's heart beneath plate. Lanterns winked open along the galley's prow, revealing a painted figurehead, a woman notched with old scars, breasts bared and eyes wide in eternal frenzy. The ship's name flared under torchlight. Widow's Scream, infamous among smugglers for 20 kills south of Crab Isle. Meet death with calm, Dayne had taught. Each breath steadies the blade. Jon inhaled salt, exhaled ghost. He counted heartbeat by heartbeat as the widow closed. 100 yards, 80, 60. At 50 they could see armored shapes crowding the forecastle, pikes, crossbows, half-helms vermilion with rust. Jon raised one gloved hand. An archer hidden behind the lioness bulwark plucked a bowstring. A fire-tipped arrow arced into fog and burst above the widow in a blossom of green flame. Wildfire's smaller cousin, bright enough to etch every rivet on black hull planks. The raiders spilled back like startled roaches. Jon's second signal sent a weighted cask whistling outward on a sling. The cask struck water yards short of the widow, cracked, and belched a gout of emerald fire that licked the gale-swept air. The galley heeled away, oar lines tangling. Torches flared, sailors bellowed in 24 tongues. By the time they'd cleared the burning slick, the lioness was ghost once more, swallowed by mist. Dayne's smile flickered beneath fur-rimmed hood. Our prince fights wars without swords. Jon watched the distant glow fade to green memory. Steel is precious, he murmured. Fire grows on trees. Varys tucked lantern close. And fear grows even faster. Let it, Jon said. By the time we cross the gullet, every corsair will steer clear of ghost ships. 3 days later, the first gulls returned, swooping behind the rigging while morning sun melted night haze. Sharp white wings against azure, a herald salute from the mother to those nearing home waters. Yet to Jon, Westeros was no cradle. It loomed like a vast stage where every actor carried knives beneath brocade. At high noon, cliffs rose on the northern horizon, serrated and bone-white. The whispers, where shipwrecked souls claimed, drowned men, still told secrets at low tide. Captain Tivero, a taciturn Volantene who had spoken fewer than 40 words since Pentos, guided the lioness through shoals with a lover's care. No other ships challenged them, though smoke pillars stained the sky 12 leagues inland. Villages burned by marauders trailing one feuding lord or another. On the quarterdeck, Varys spread a vellum chart between deck bolts. Colored pins dotted the map like legions. Red for Lannister host, gray for Stark, green for Tyrell, yellow for Baratheon of Storm's End. He tapped a blue pin set on Fair Isle. Lord Farman still holds allegiance to King Joffrey, but half his captains resent Lannister tariffs. A quiet purse could open the Fair Castle. Jon studied distances. Too far north of our goal. We land at Massey's Hook. Dayne's brow furrowed. Wooded. Sparsely watched. But the King's Road armies roam nearby. If scouts catch our tracks, they will find poachers, Jon cut in. We bury our armor, carry bows, speak simpleton Riverlander can't. Varys knows every dialect. The eunuch inclined his head. I shall reacquaint myself with H-dropping and sheep curses. And the chests of coin? Dayne asked. Hide them in sinkholes, Jon said, marked by glyphs only we 3 can read. Gold is anchor. Drop it where needed, sail on free. Night found them anchored beneath a crescent cove where brambles nearly kissed the surf. Deckhands ferried crates ashore under starlight cloaked by whispering pines. Jon leapt the last 2 yards into cold surf, boots sinking in pebbles. The sand smelled of kelp and old fires long extinguished. He half expected ghosts to rise from the foam, ancestors come to weigh his cause. But only terns watched, bright-eyed and merciless. By dawn, the lioness was 30 leagues to sea, bound south to drift until recalled. Jon, Dayne, and Varys stood on a bluff dotted with wind-stunted pines, surveying a land wild with war's aftershocks. Smoke haunted the eastward sky where Massey's lands met the Stormlands. To the west, a ribbon of beaten earth marked the roiling King's Road. Refugees, deserters, broken men flowing north and south like blood leaking from a wound. Jon sheathed his travel dirt. We walk among them. Dayne's cloak reversed from noble indigo to mud-brown rough-spun. Varys hunched shoulders, donned a straw hat, sun-bleached to anonymity. Jon tugged a sagging hood low over silver hair, dyeing the visible tufts filthy black with a smear of soot. With ash, sweat, and patience, a prince vanished, leaving only one more road-ragged youth, chasing perhaps a bowl of stew. They joined the King's Road 2 miles inland. The press of humanity stunned the senses. Scores of oxen carts rattling over ruts, barefoot children dragging bundles bigger than their torsos, hedge knights hawking protection for a swallow of wine, whores with bruised lips flirting through exhaustion. Laughter, tears, the mutter of 10 dialects braided together into a single note of despair. Jon strode silently, but his gaze consumed everything. Sigils sewn on stained tabards, the style of rivets on battered helms, the look of fear in mothers' eyes, when hooves pounded beyond bend. Each crumb was a letter in war's ledger. 3 days' march brought them to an alehouse sagging between dead orchards. Lanterns glowed behind shutters. Raid, the color that promised drink and a straw pallet, if coin clinked. Inside, the low ceiling trapped pipe smoke thick as peat fog. A one-armed bard strummed a harp, sans 3 strings. His song staggered from nursery rhyme to bawdy jest in a single verse. Farmers hunched over cider, speaking of wolves dining on corpses at River Run and Sellswords, turning cloaks thrice in a fortnight. Jon slid onto a bench near the hearth where coals glimmered like dying rubies. Varys ordered turnip stew for 2 coppers. Dayne kept hood up and back to wall. News drifted over pewter cups. Robb Stark smashed the Kingslayer on the Whispering Wood. Aye, but now the young wolf's penned by floods. Sir Lancel's thrown down his gauntlet in Harrenhal, says half the fray hosts naught but ghosts. A stag's fleet sails from Dragonstone, burning everything that floats. Jon absorbed, sifted, weighed. When a scar-cheeked drover claimed Riverland's men would swear any king if it spared their fields. Jon leaned forward. Any? He asked. The drover eyed his ragged cloak. Any what feed 'em. Wolves feed 'em iron, lions feed 'em fire. Maybe a dragon feed 'em now. Dragon's dead a century, a seamstress scoffed, yet her voice quavered. Jon's lip twitched. Nothing stays dead forever. The seamstress stared, then laughed too loudly. That night, on pallets above the stable, Varys whispered, "Rumor grows fertile. Your words may seed curiosity. Let them sprout," Jon replied. "If every man between here and Duskendale wonders whether dragons rise, the truth arrives half told." Dayne's charcoal eyes gleamed in moonslats. "Words are arrows. Loose too many, one finds your heart." Jon frowned. "Better arrows than chains. I will not creep from shadow to shadow begging fealty. The realm must feel hope before it sees a crowned brow." Varys sighed. "Hope is fragile. So is glass, yet wielded right, it cuts." They reached Duskendale on the 5th day, under lowering skies bruised purple with storm omen. The harbor reeked of rotting cod and spilled lamp oil. But war booms swelled coffers. Dockmasters barked tariffs. Smithies rang night and day, forging thorn-spiked caltrops and lantern shields for whichever envoy flashed gold. Lord Ricker, nominally sworn to King Joffrey, kept his men confined behind stout palisade. Outside, townsfolk bartered stolen Lannister blades to Stark outriders while Golden Company spies haggled for maps of the King's Road escarp. Jon recognized the spies by their bootlaces. Black crossknots 3 lines down, a code once taught him by a Pentoshi tutor. He watched them linger by the well, feigning thirst. Dayne sensed tension ripple through the prince's shoulders. "Allies," he murmured. "Not yet," Jon answered. "They serve coin shifts. 300,000 dragons worth of coin," Varys noted. "Illyrios, waiting on the Rhoyne. Money enough to hire the Golden Company for life, if life remained long in these lands." They entered a tannery whose stench scorched nostrils. At a rear table behind drapes stiff with salts, a man waited, narrow-eyed, hair sheared to stubble, one gold tooth glinting by candleshake. Homeless Celestial to the blind, but Jon saw the elephant tattoo half hidden under collar, the mark of Miles Toyne, exiled scion and captain general of the Golden Company. Toyne motioned for them to sit. No greetings, no names. Only the soft clack of a dagger turned idly between fingers. Jon placed a single copper coin on the table. Toyne eyed it, snorted. Jon covered it with his palm. 10,000 more. Wait upriver. Toyne's knife stilled. Words. Wait, Jon corrected, sliding parchment from his boot. Seals notched its edge. Merchants of Kuohor, Bank of Bravos, Lysine Consortium. Enough liquidity to equip a kingdom for winter. Half now, half when we cross the Blackwater. You bring 8,000 spears, 600 horses, all under black and gold. Toyne tapped scarred knuckle on copper. Why follow you? Jon drew back his hood. Silver hair spilled over brow, darkened by road grime. Violet eyes glowed in the tannery gloom. He flicked candlelight with a thin smile. Because Bloodraven said so. Toyne's breath caught. The dagger ceased spinning. Across oceans, the Golden Company kept old tales of a one-eyed sorcerer who whispered of a hidden king to a bastard sellsword centuries dead. Jon leaned forward. Because Bittersteel's dream still heaves its last breaths in your hearts. Because your motto is more than ink. I am the exile's vow made flesh. Home, Golden Crows, is 9 days' march west. Silence hummed. Leather workers shuffled in adjacent rooms, thumping hides. Finally, Toyne lifted the copper, bit it, spat iron flecks. Half now, princeling. His voice rasped like drawstone on steel. We sail from this come fortnight. 3 days, Jon countered. War waits for no oathbreaker. War waits for fools even less. Jon slid parchment closer. Trust me, Captain. I have no intent to wait. Toyne's grin bared gold. 3 days then. Pray your dragons hatch paper into steel. They parted under dusk thick with tannery fumes. Dayne exhaled slow. Risky. Revealing yourself. I showed a glimpse, Jon said. Enough to bait, not enough to hang. Varys smoothed his sleeves. Bittersteel, truly? Old prophecies wear many skins. Let them clothe me until I weave my own. Nay. Night before Toyne's deadline, thunder stampeded across the sky, driving rain like slingstones against shutter and slate. Jon lay awake atop straw mattress in an abandoned granary, counting lightning pulses. Each flash carved rafters into bone-white ribcages overhead. Beside him, Dayne cleaned Dawn with an oiled cloth, the sword catching electric bursts like bottled dawn. Do you regret? Dayne asked quietly. Choosing the cloak of Jon when the crown demands Aegon? I regret names flown like banners before battle, Jon answered. Each wave's a promise. And promises are chains. Some chains I welcome. Dayne set cloth aside. If battle crowns you sooner than expected, what name will roar from the trumpets? Jon's fingers traced the tattoo down his arm. Whichever terrifies my foes more than it confuses friends. A boom of thunder shook dust free. Dayne nodded grim acclaim. Below, Varys compiled raven scrolls by candle stump. Reports poured through secret channels. Renly slain by Shadow on Blackwater Rush. Stannis broken in the Blackwater battle, but regained sea power. The north fracturing under Frey's smiles. The riverlands red with betrayal. The realm rotted faster than autumn apples. Perfect. Dawn washed the storm away. Jon met Toyne at dawn's first break on a salt-scoured jetty. The Golden Company's flagship, the Iron Victory, loomed seaward, sails furled. Crew crouched like crows on yardarms. Toyne spit overboard. 8,000 men wait on Lys, he said. 3,000 more gather in Tyrosh. All hardened, all hungry. Then, Jon produced a purse heavy enough to yank Toyne's wrist earthward. Salt until bread. The mercenary's grin cracked scars. I like bread. Departing Duskendale under false Tyroshi sails. The Iron Victory vanished into dawn haze. Jon watched her go. Hard a drum. Step 1. They cut inland west of Rosby, skirting patrols under banners halved, red and black. Stannis' new colors. Baratheon's stag fused to burning heart. War horns floated in distant gloaming, like mourning wails. Bodies hung from cottonwoods, their purple tongues lolling accusation against whichever king claimed justice last. Jon studied each corpse, placement, attire, wounds. Each spoke of fierce currency. One evening they camped in ruins of a sept gutted by lightning. Rainbow shards of stained glass crunched under boots. 7 headless statues reached pleading arms toward a ceiling lost to clouds. Jon knelt among rubble, brushed moss from a marble base. The mother, carved by hands long dust. What do you pray for? Varys asked. Not prayer, Jon murmured. Memory. He rose, dusting palms. A king must remember mercies even when gods forget. Dayne replaced a fallen shard in the mother's palm. The gesture felt more vow than pity. At Maidenpool, they found small folk crowded into the harbor like fish in drying nets. Fleeing stormlords raiding for supplies. Jon posed as Smith's apprentice in search of cheap iron. He bought 6 sacks of horseshoe nails, mundane, easily scattered on supply roads to lame enemy wagons. Dayne purchased a crate of Sisterton crayfish to curry favor with dockhands who gossiped between gutting and boil. From these hands came gold. Joffrey's court starved for Tyrell wheat since the Reach menaced grain ships. Sir Davos Seaworth, newly minted hand to Stannis, recruited smugglers to slip black powder bombs beneath Lion War galleys. Lord Roose Bolton rode south to the Twins with leeches dreaming of wolf's blood, every scrap a thread. Varys wove them into a tapestry none but he could read. Night cloaked Maidenpool in sour fog. Jon slipped alone to the tidal flats, where shipwreck ribs jutted like drowned giants' knuckles. He struck steel to flint 3 times. On the 3rd spark, a lantern winked from far jetty. Golden Company signal. He left a leather packet where seaweed bunched, weighted by riverstone. Maps of Blackwater defenses gleaned from a drunk Lannister scribe 3 nights earlier. When he returned to shore at dawn, packet gone. A single black coin lay in its place. On one side, coiled dragon. On the other, crowned skull. Agreement sealed. 2. Moonlight silvered an orchard south of Rosby, where 30 men knelt wearing mail half-polished by moon. Their surcoats bore no device, yet their posture screamed discipline. Spine stiff, helm straps taut, whispers non-existent. At their center stood a woman cloaked in dark satin, her hair pale as frost. Rainy Stone, rumored bastard of noble Vale stock, once second captain of the company's archers, now envoy d'art. She bowed. Your Grace. Jon inclined his head. We are ghosts for now, Lady Rhaenys. Titles wait. She smiled a scarred smile. The men would walk naked into fire if ghosts commanded. Keep them clothed, he said. Fire burns slower through leather. Plans unfurled over cider casks. Gather at Maidenpool, jerkins reversed and shields sanded blank. March west, through the Trident disguised as Frey levies returning north. Split at Harrenhal ruins. One thrust snakes through the Kingswood to sever Mace Tyrell's supply road. Another storms Rosby to bait King's Landing garrison. Jon leads strike on Duskendale to seize harbor, while Toyne's main host lands at Crackclaw Point behind Lannister lines. With gatehouses burning and food stores seized, the capital will look east for savior. Then the dragon's shadow falls. Rhaenys traced troop symbols in dirt. Simple? No. But possible. Possible as meat, Jon said. Was seasoned with daring. Dayne's voice cut the chill. Timing. Less than a moon's turn, before Tyrell harvest barges reach the city. Hunger will be my herald. They sealed plans with the old elephant salute, fist to heart. In the weeks that followed, rumors bloomed across river hamlets like fever rash. A silver-eyed bandit robbed Lannister tax carts and left dragon tokens on corpses. Ghost archers in black and gold feathers felled Frey outriders from impossible range. Wildfire eggs washed ashore near the Roserad, burning holes through merchant wagons. One hedge septon swore he saw Rhaegar's shade walking the Trident at moonrise, whispering of debts come due. Lannister nerves frayed. Ravens flew from the Red Keep, bearing contradictory commands. Attack Crackclaw Point. Fortify Duskendale. Scour the Kingswood. Burn the river villages. Sir Adam Marbrand rode in circles, chasing phantom footprints. Cersei Lannister threw goblets at her small council. Pycelle bled while claiming ailments. Varys, of course, fed every rumor twin tongues, using little birds he'd seeded years earlier. In back alleys, they told tales of a dragon king come to avenge wolves, and doves alike. Some named him Rhaegar Risen. Others whispered Jon Connington's bastard disguise. Each telling sowed more doubt than the last. On the eve of action, Jon visited a weirwood that clung to life in a forgotten sept yard outside Duskendale. Its white bark peeled like aged parchment. Red leaves spiraled down on autumn breeze, each heart-shaped like a maiden's sigh. He laid hand to trunk. The wood felt cold, smooth, almost flesh. He had never seen Winterfell's godswood, but stories lingered. Wolves howling under crimson canopy, snow-kissing stone faces that wept sap. He closed eyes. Let memory stitched from second-hand tales conjure distant frost. In that hush, words surfaced unbidden. Promise me he will live. Lyanna's plea voiced again after 17 years. Jon's chest tightened. Dayne approached. Ghosts speak. Not tonight, Jon answered. Yet he felt them swirling. Lyanna's anguish, Rhaegar's harp songs, Eddard Stark's silent honor. Each ghost urged a different path. Dayne rested a calloused palm on the white bark beside Jon's. The first kill hurt, the knight said softly. The 100th will scar less. Be sure the 1000th does not empty you. Jon opened his eyes to the face carved into the trunk. Featureless now, weathered away. If emptiness wins, who saves the realm? Perhaps the realm saves itself. Jon snorted. Hope is a song few recall. Then teach them, Dayne replied, but guard your own voice from sorrow. They left the weirwood shedding tears of red. The first blow fell on Rosby at dawn when fog blanketed battlements. 60 Golden Company veterans in stolen Frey blue, infiltrated as baggage train, their wagons hollow and laden with sellswords beneath sackcloth. They opened the barley gate from within. Jon, Dayne, and 200 archers stormed through under Shrike banners, black wings on gold. Rosby's garrison fell in an hour. Lord Giles, pale and wheezing from swamp cough, surrendered his keep, his coin, and his ravenry. Jon accepted the surrender with gentle courtesy, promising protection of small folk, first taste of chivalry after years of lion claws. He left a garrison of 30 men to hold, then marched south. 9 leagues away, Rhaenys cavalry ambushed a Tyrell grain caravan. 20 wagons, 80 guards. They burned none. Instead, they circled each wagon with dragon tokens hammered to staves. Food for the people's king. Refugees flocked. Bread filled bellies that had known only boiled leather. Word sprinted toward King's Landing faster than couriers. Inside the city, riots flared. Hungry mobs stormed granaries, rumored fat with spoiled wheat for Lannister feasts. Gold cloaks cracked heads until their maces cracked. The High Sparrow preached that a righteous king would feed the faithful. Cersei shrieked for order. Joffrey ordered heads, but heads already rolled without his word. Meanwhile, Tywin's main host took the Kingswood, severing the Roserad. Merchant wagons burnt in ditches, smoke columns pointing accusing fingers at the capital. Black banners, dragon over-crossed spears, fluttered atop tree lines. Various little birds inside the Red Keep began to whisper. A true-born Targaryen leads the sellswords. He's Rhaegar's son, saved as babe. He wears the sword of the morning. He feeds children. Fear curdled into longing. Jon held council in Rosby's high tower. Maps sprawled across a siege table, dwarfed by dust. Tywin, Rhaenys, Dayne, Varys, and 3 captains whose names carried steel. Warlock, Old Ink, and Sweets, a giant of a man ironically named. King's Landing starves, Tywin reported, tapping a dagger on the parchment city. Gold cloaks desert nightly. Half would join us if open gate stood. Not yet, Jon said. Hunger drives hearts but also madness. We starve the lion until he begs wolf for bite. Sweets grinned around a cherry stem. We bite soon? Teeth itch. Soon. Jon pointed to Blackwater Rush Bend south of the city. Stannis' fleet rebuilds here at Edric's Hook. We escort barges of grain under his colors, bribe his quartermaster to vanish for a night. Our ships anchor under the Rush's north bank. We ferry sacks to slums. When the capital wakes fed by a dragon while Queen thrashes, they will open doors themselves. Tywin blinked. We feed foes? We feed subjects, Jon corrected. Kings win wars, but rulers win rulers. Rhaenys traced the Roserad with slim finger. Mace Tyrell cannot abide humiliation. He marches soon. Hence next strike, Jon replied. We cut the Bridge of Skulls at Bitterbridge. Tyrell vanguard delays. Their siege engines mire. By time they reroute, Stannis' pretensions fall to mine. Bold? Old ink croaked. Necessary, Jon said. Dayne added, but high risk. If Tyrell scouts glean our true numbers, their pride will charge anyway, Jon finished. And pride is easier target than fear. Varys' eyes gleamed. I will see whispers reach Mace's ear. Rebels, led by Knight of No Name, scarcely 4,000 strong. Good, Jon nodded. Double his rage, half his caution. Sweet's cracked knuckles. Cherry sweet. Council dismissed. Dayne lingered. Your father fought Tyrells once, he said. Pinned them at Ashford. He loathed wasting lives. And I? Jon asked. You risk thousands on rumor. Jon stared out window toward smoke-blooming King's Road. I risk thousands to save hundreds thousands more. Each day Cersei holds throne. Another village burns. War ends sooner by daring, or drags longer by hubris. Jon's jaw worked. Then stand by to slay hubris if it wears my face. Dayne's bow was slow, uncertain. As promised, my prince. The operation against Bitterbridge unfolded beneath new moon dark dot. 200 Lightfoot archers and 40 sappers crept along the Mander's marshy east bank, guided by reeds that hissed like serpents in night wind. Lanterns hooded, breath held. They crossed mud flats where even frogs dared not croak. Hours before dawn they scaled the bridge's pilings, planting dragonfire spheres into tar-packed crevices. A single spark wrong placed would turn them ash. They moved as priests in silent liturgy. Jon waited on northern abutment, trousers drenched to thigh from river wading. His pulse drummed not in fear, but in fierce clarity. Each ripple, each owl's hoot etched into a map behind his eyes. When the last sapper signaled, Jon raised iron striker. Wordless countdown. Strike. Flame blossomed beneath waterline, emerald light gushing upward like demon's breath. Stone groaned, timbers shrieked. The Bridge of Skulls, ancient enough to remember Aegon's first flight, shuddered once, twice, then sagged, slabs plunging into churning green as explosions marched across its span. Miles upstream, Mace Tyrell's scouts saw dawn's ghost glow and heard thunder where none should be. They returned shouting doom. Behind them, siege columns yamped rosé dust roads. Oxen panicked. Quartermasters tore hair. Lady Olenna muttered darkly that some cooks spoil every broth. Jon watched rubble swallow moonlight. He felt not triumph, only timeline shifting. Closer, closer. Feeding King's Landing required illusions. 40 fishing skiffs, flying stag and flame. Signals rode up Blackwater at dusk. Hulls packed with sacks of barley disguised as gravel. Gold cloaks at Riverboom challenged them. Davos forged sigils earned grudging pass. On North Bank, cloaked volunteers hauled grain ashore, vanishing into Flea Bottom's labyrinth. Poor mothers woke to find barley heaps outside hovels. Children gnawed raw kernels with laughter not heard in moons. By sunrise, rumor claimed a silver-eyed angel scattered wheat from skies. Septons proclaimed miracle. Cersei raged, blaming Stannis. Stannis denied, called it Sellsword plot. Small folk shrugged. Bellies full, hope rekindled. A spark at last. Varys' birds chirped frantic within day. Half the gold cloaks now believed the hidden benefactor true king, not Boy Lion. Commander Jacelyn Bywater, still healing from Blackwater wounds, wrote private letter to the one who feeds while others devour. The letter reached Jon via beggar girl disguised as Ratcatcher. He read it beside Rosby's hearth. Bywater offered secret entry at Mudgate come full moon, in exchange for clemency for his men. Dayne folded arms. Trap. Perhaps, Jon allowed. But hunger rarely lies. Toyne urged caution. Rhaenys urged bold leap. Jon listened, weighed, then said, "We do not stroll through gates. We open them from within." He chose 10. 2 Golden Company sergeants, 1 healer adept at leechcraft, 3 Rosby grooms, Dayne, Varys, and himself under the guise of Tom O'Seven's juggler. They slipped toward city in fish carts at dusk. Mudgate loomed, iron-bound and reeking of river rot. Bywater's second, a square-jawed sergeant, unlocked postern, eyes wary. then hurried them through pitch-rent corridors into flea bottoms, tangled arteries. Jon felt the city's pulse, each alley a vein throbbing with desperation, each shuttered window an eyelid half frozen in dread. Everywhere, lion crimson scabs-covered murals of the Seven. Knights' clamors echoed, babies crying, drunkards cursing, distant shrieks clamped abruptly silent. Yet here and there, children played stickball with stale loaves, grinning crumb-toothed gratitude to the invisible wheat storm. They reached Bywater's chamber behind the armory. The old knight stood stiff, copper beard more gray than red. He bowed, knuckle to breast. "Your grace." Jon removed hood. "Your city begs peace, sir," I answer. Bywater's eyes flicked to dawn at Dayne's back. "They say that blade belonged to a hero once." "It belongs to any who protect the realm," Jon said. "Will you help us protect it?" Bywater sighed. "I swore vows to defend the crown. But when crown kills children for crying, vows choke." He poured pale wine. "Half my men stand ready. The other half answer gold. Yours if you feed them." "Nothing." "Done," Jon said. "But no gold tonight. Only iron." Plans whispered across sputtering lantern. At second watch, gold cloaks loyal to Bywater would relieve Mudgate and Rivergate posts simultaneously. Jon's rebels inside would hack chain pulleys. Outside, Rhaenys's archers awaited on skiffs moored mid-river. At signal, they'd row in, slip through gap, secure docks. Tywin's host approached on eastern ridge, ready to pour down Visenya's hill once gates opened. All hinged on stealth and swift blood. Bywater clasped Jon's forearm. "No fire inside walls, my prince. People have burned enough." "Agreed," Jon said. Dayne's eyes, silver flint. "If lions see gates swing wide, they'll torch half city in spite." "Then we take keep before they choose," Jon answered. No time for doubt. Second watch, moon carved high across ink sky. Mudgate guards, changed in yawning drizzle. Bywater's loyalists strolled in, helmets askew like drunks. A picket yawned. Another scratched lice. Then, knife hilts cracked skulls. 6 lions dropped silent. Pulley levers creaked, portcullis shivered, lifted. Outside, Rhaenys's skiffs glided between burned warship hulks. Archers disembarked, leaving boats adrift to masked numbers. Within 300 heartbeats, docks held 80 silent shadows. At Visenya's ridge, Tywin's spear vanguard advanced under black banners. No drums, only the hush of killers on mission. Inside, Jon and Dayne slipped through dark streets toward the Red Keep. 6 gold cloaks guided them via cellar passages, spidering under shop fronts. Sewage stench mixed with lilac perfume from collapsed apothecaries above. Rats fled their torchlight. They emerged beneath Maegor's holdfast's shadow. Crimson cloaks patrolled battlements, oblivious. Jon stared at towering red walls, iron spikes glinting like liar's teeth. Rhaegar died for this city, he thought. Now his son returns in shadow. Dayne produced grappling hook, strung with Dornish silk rope. They scaled inner wall where bricks crumbled from Blackwater scorch. On the rampart, 2 Lannister men dozed. Jon slit one throat, Dayne the other. Blood steamed on stones. Below, courtyard torches sputtered, guard numbers thin. Cersei had drawn men to main gates anticipating Tyrell threat, leaving inner drawbridge half-watched. Jon signaled. Gold cloaks opened sallyport. 80 Golden Company infiltrators flooded courtyard, blades wrapped to dull clink. Quarters taken with surgeon's precision. Smithy, kitchens, stables. Jon led Strike up serpentine steps to Tower of the Hand. Tyrion absent. Kevan Lannister command slept within. Door splintered under boot. Kevan lunged for sword. Dayne parried, disarmed. Jon pressed dagger to uncle's throat. "Surrender," Jon whispered. "Spare your men slaughter." Kevan's eyes blazed lion pride. "Who are you?" "The next dawn," Jon said. Iron shackles clicked. In Maiden Vault, Cersei flung wine at maids as boom of fighting reached shutters. She screamed for Kingsguard. Only Sir Boros arrived, panting, face white. Gold cloaks wrested him down. Rhaenys disarmed him with single twist. Cersei spat venom until Jon entered. Silver hair unhooded, violet eyes stern. "Your terror ends," he told her. She froze, mouth slack. For a moment she saw a ghost of young Rhaegar, and color fled her cheeks. She collapsed, whispering, "Madness." Jon ordered her confined under gentle watch. Elsewhere, Toyn's host poured through Rivergate, banners unfurling dawnfire. City bells rang alarm, then wonder. Small folk spilled from shacks to cheer the black and gold elephants, not lions. Vendors thrust bread. Children waved ragged cloth dyed with improvised dragons. By sunrise, Red Keep banners changed. Three-headed dragon on field of midnight. No queen burned, no wildfire detonated. Only stillness and cautious hope. Jon stood upon ramparts where Joffrey once preened. Wind tugged his cloak, revealing tattoo. Dayne at his side, dawn reflecting sunrise. Rhaenys and Toyn flanked rear, spear and bow. Below, gold cloak ranks assembled. Bywater presenting his sword. "King's Landing is yours." Jon accepted hilt. "It is ours," he corrected. He raised voice to courtyard throng. "People of Westeros, you have bled under war for crowns you never chose. Hear me. I am Jon of House Targaryen, son of Rhaegar, blood of dragon and wolf. I claim no birthright alone. I claim duty to feed, shield, and heal. Kneel if you would see children grow without chains of hunger, without fires of tyranny." Nanawa. Silence powerful as thunder. Then one voice rose, an old woman in tattered shawl, crying, "Bread King." Another shouted, "Dragon Wolf." Knees bent, first scattered, then wave. Gold cloaks knelt, sellswards, maids, smiths. Bells tolled, no longer alarm but proclamation. Yet, crown absent. Jon felt its weight nonetheless. Varys approached, eyes shining. "The realm sees dawn, my prince." Jon studied horizon where smoke of wars yet raged. Dawn's light also shows scars. Work begins now. Dayne sheathed sword. "What name will you sign upon decrees?" Jon exhaled. "For now, simply Jon. Let deeds gild the title." He descended to meet his people, each step echoing promise kept beneath dying torches in a Dornish tower long ago. And above, the wind carried scent not of ash, but of fresh bread, baking in ovens newly stoked, feeding a city reborn under a dragon's quiet wings.